You're back in your comfy, reassuring janitorial duds. Seldom have you had the good fortune to get to know a street so up close and personal. You feel you have a real bond growing. This is an interesting billboard. You can't help but wonder what this Altera company markets. The dumpster is nearly the cleanest item in the area, and you thought you were a slob. This guy looks like a vertically challenged Darth Vader. What does a thing like that do for fun? That's an interesting piece of hardware. Your normally dim power of recollection actually recalls having seen a picture of one of these in the ship library. Get this, it's called a bike. People used to actually get on these and use their own muscles to achieve locomotion. What losers. Upon closer inspection, you notice some sort of ID card hanging on the frame.
Thank you, my good man. Yikes, I hope everything came out with me.
You're back in your... You'd think, if indeed you did, that a guy with the skin quality of a pachyderm wouldn't have a problem with this climate. Bootlicker appears to be open for business. Rats! The cinema appears to be closed. You were really hoping to see Tango and Cash 27. This guy looks like a... The Cyclops Club doesn't appear to be doing business. It looks like someone or something got just a little two-faced and wrecked a perfectly good Loadster 750, the Pinto of Polysorbate. Fire burns inside barrels along the streets. Apparently those using them are residents of planets a bit closer to the suns that they orbit. The temperature seems quite moderate to you, but then you do fancy yourself a studly guy. Too bad no one else shares that opinion. The street seems to reflect the same care and sense of community pride that the rest of the area enjoys. Fire burns. Deep inside, he chuckles to himself with the thought that you think he might actually care what you have to say. Hey, that one looks familiar. It lacks a bit in the stature department, though. Upon grabbing the ID card, you notice the picture on it is of a rather homely-looking alien type. Guess everyone can't be as fortunate as you. It's the alien ID you snagged from that rusty bike. That's a fairly hideous picture of the former owner. It makes the average Department of Motor Vehicles photographer look like Ansel Adams. That's your current Buckazoid collection. It's your trusty whisk broom and dustpan. You get fingerprints all over it. Bearing signs indicating the names of the streets which create this intersection, a light pole illuminates the area. What a mistake that is. Like anyone would want to see more of this place. What's that? It looks like the end of a used Q-tip. That guy looks like a walking green flash bulb, and his eyes look like filaments, and... Whoa! Must be a janitorial flashback. You wonder if there could be any connection between this kind of waste disposal and a thriving business like implants and stuff. Wow, that's kind of deep for you. This part of town is almost as glamorous as the rest. Now there's an interesting sounding business name. You wonder what they sell. It's the Do Beam Inn, but I'm sure they accept pedestrians also. The door hinges aren't exactly overheated from a steady flow of eager patrons. Interesting, she appears to be waiting for someone. She might be one of those professional ladies your mom told you about. You're back in your... A very odd fixture occupies a good portion of this corner. Its purpose is irrelevant, as it seems to be the victim of a lack of maintenance and some sort of clinging mineral-like deposit, which have been laid down in several arch-shaped patterns. A sensible person would be afraid to find out what this caps off. That being the case, I'll take the liberty of telling you that it's something you don't want to mess with. This place still has those old-style ray projection infomercial viewers. What rubes. This place still has the... That's the manager of this little slice of heaven. He looks like he's an expert on energy conservation. Mainly his. Nice place, if you're a fan of dives. Those are some interesting-looking dudes. Must be a couple of real losers, since they seem to be dateless. Of course, that won't be a problem for you once word gets around that you've hit the planet. Can you believe he actually thinks that? Those are some interesting-looking dudes. Can you believe he actually... Your words are so unspectacular, nature doesn't even see fit to grant it an echo. You start to say something, and then you remember that you're supposed to be a man of action, not words. Or is that the other way around? He seems to be ignoring you.
Excuse me. I'd like a room, please.
Really? I mean, really? Well, I think we got one or two for a couple of $100 a night. In advance, you understand.
I believe I have a prepaid reservation provided me by StarCon.
I got no reservations from any StarCon. I got no reservations, period. I do a cash business. You want a room, cough out the buckazoids.
So that's, 200. Well, okay.
200? Don't you listen, son? I said 300. That's 300 a night. And I don't include any weird pets. Them's extra.
I could have sworn you said...
You calling me a liar? I don't need no guff from the likes of you. This is the finest lodging on the planet, son. If you don't like the prices, you can just take your sorry, pinkish carcass out of here.
Well, 300? Okay, but give me your finest room then.
The finest room? Yeah, right. You got it, buckaroo. Best in the house. Coming right up. Pay up, and we're in business. I'm busy, son. When you give me 300 buckazoids, then we'll talk. I'm real busy. See ya!
That's not recommended. That'll either get an appendage removed or a date you really don't want. That's delightfully non-helpful. It feels slightly gritty.
Hey, where you going, son? That's for paying customers only.
No, I don't think so. We're pretty good about letting you carry a lot of junk around, but you really don't need this. At some time in a life that might have existed eons ago, these ghosts of flora past might have been called plants.
Those two look like people my mom warned me about. I think I should avoid them.
She says, "Scrump off, you little felchmonger." Let's not, and say we did. You could never have enough buckazoids, mop breath. Not a good... Ah, an arcade. You haven't been in an arcade in at least a sequel or two. How cute. It has a really big replica of a coin slot. The sidewalks here, with a few exceptions, are a bit clearer in this area. Sweet sentiments, urban style. It's one of those new Kodak mobile photo booths. I heard they were beta testing those. This guy looks friendly now. Try to keep it that way. A mechanical traffic light diligently maintains control over the nearly non-existent traffic in the area. The street light adds illumination to an area that really would be better off without it. The street names look familiar. Must have been something from a past life. The pilot of this craft employed a truly creative parking technique. By the looks of it, they'd been a patron of Orion's Belt immediately prior to executing this fine parking job. Sometimes it's hard to tell which looks stranger, the ship or the being piloting it. You won't know in this case, though, since this seems to have been abandoned for quite some time. The street's a little bit cleaner here. It does have that peculiar burn crater just under the traffic signal. The flaming barrels remind you of the good old days, kicking back in the sandy outback of Corona, roasting grell burgers over a lit rocket nozzle. Life was so simple then, but then so are you. Apparently, some things don't change.
Hello, Mr. Bouncer?
He pays very little attention. You're pretty used to it. But someday... Another Orion's Belt franchise. That's one place you have yet to be banished from. I'll bet that's the finest neon sculpture on the whole corner. It would appear that once again, Vice is a bit more profitable than most business ventures. This place is almost too hip for the planet. But then, that's no mean feat, given what a total heap this place appears to be. So this is where Sinead O'Connor's been hanging out. Looks like this big furry dude is laying out his best Orlanian pickup lines for the Ice Queen. It appears she's not fielding any of them. What can be said that isn't painfully obvious? That bores me. Yikes! I'll bet even old Fester Blatz hasn't seen one of these. Yikes! A quick look indicates that the bartender is physically well-balanced and adroit. A good combination for this profession. The shirt would further indicate that he has the mentality for it. You recognize the uniform of the Fistal Hemisphere Alliance. This guy has an interesting cranial configuration. Unlike that popular trunk-bearing pachyderm on that planet Earth, this guy seems to actually be drinking through his trunk. That means he's drinking through his nose. Yuck. This rather large individual with the headphones seems to have tuned this place out. What a boss blender. I'll bet they can make all kinds of foo-foo drinks in that. An interesting arrangement of conduits creates an almost artistic pattern to the back bar area. It's hard to tell what is merely decorative and what is functional. This is the main floor of the Swank Lounge, Orion's Belt. This seems to be where things are happening for the slightly seedier beings of the city. As you can see, there's a pretty good cross-section of the regional population represented here. A wide variety of concoctions fills the shelves behind the bar. There's probably something there to provide a buzz for just about any organic system. Some of your personal favorites: Babylon 45, Watney's Red Planet, and Starbeck. Starbeck, it makes you go where no man has gone before. This is the main... She acts as though you don't exist. It's a familiar feeling. Their conversation continues uninterrupted by you. You get a jump on Sid.
What can I do for you there, fella?
What have you got?
Well, aside from the obvious stuff which is glaring in your face from the back wall here, I do make some mixed drinks. I mean, if I do say so myself, I make a pretty mean William Gibson and a pretty good Asimov cocktail, you know what I mean, huh? Hey, I got you. Try a fuzzy toe jam. They seem to be pretty popular with your particular species here. Okay, you got it, pal. What can I do for you?
You know what? I think I'll pass.
The refrigeration unit blends well with the design scheme. Hey, when did you start knowing things like that? There's a small valve on this conduit. Now there's an interesting look. What can be said that isn't painfully obvious? That she'll look better come closing time. It's one of several people dying to get into the restroom. This guy's the next in line for the restroom. He looks a little anxious. This guy wishes he had a clothespin right about now. Yep, it's the fourth guy in line for the restroom. Definitely standing room only. A waitress hovers about, tray in claw, tending to the upstairs clientele. It makes decent tips, especially for a synthetic being. Gee, an empty booth. Perhaps you should clean it. These guys are a nicely matched set. They seem to be amusing each other to a very high degree. This guy looks like he just got back from Cybernam. The walls up here maintain the same conduit theme as below. The walls up here maintain the same... Wow, this sucker makes even you look like GQ material. These nitro suckers come in all types. They're all drawing on the hoses. Amazingly, they don't freeze. They just glaze over for a few moments while the others laugh. This one has a tattoo which says, "I love Lula." These nitro suckers, this one has As with some other tables, a large tank marked liquid nitrogen sits beneath the center. It feeds the hookah manifold above. A set of hoses are within reach for each being which might be perched there. He ignores you. Get used to it. In this case, I'd suggest you just talk to yourself. You drool in that direction. They don't seem able, or at least are unwilling, to converse in your language.